guys probably all know Stephen Knightley, who's a good friend of mine, and we caught up for coffee. We had an idea of what we wanted to do, a digital playground. This was way before Pokemon Go, back in 2015. And he said to us, oh, you should do a business incubator. And I was like, what on earth is that? I didn't even know. And so that was how our journey began of going into 2 business incubators and using incubators to start our first prototype. I think that was the best thing that we could have done, getting money from the government to actually develop a prototype that you can test and validate and figure out the price point. This was our second product that we did. The first one was Sharks in Park, the second one was Magical Park, which is the digital playground that we developed. At the very beginning, I'll share that with you and then I'll never ever talk about it ever again. When we started and we did our first, what was going to be the pitch, right? And we were only just, starting out maybe 4 months into the business. We thought, how much can we charge for a digital playground? Maybe $60,000 a year per park. We'll be rich, awesome. And then we started talking to councils, and they were like, you want to have how much? Yeah, forget it. and that was a real reality check. That what we thought was going to be the super awesome idea was all of a sudden not the money maker that we actually thought it was. In actual fact, we sat down with Wellington Council and said, well, how much would you pay for this? And they said, look, this is the process how councils work. If it is over a certain amount of money, we have to put out a tender, and then loads of people have to bid on it. You don't want that. So it has to fit within our kitchen kitty, and that's $2,500. And we were like, right, from 60,000, our dream number, to 2,500. That was quite a reality check. But we went with that because we realized, we did the numbers, if we had listed it as a premium game or with in-game purchases, we would have never survived. It would have taken us too long to build up a user base. Augmented reality was very unknown. Pokemon Go came out after we had launched. And this was way beyond Pokemon Go at the time anyway. But people didn't get the concept either. When I tried to explain what we were doing, I remember we had a news article on TV3, and somebody messaged in and said, this is an April Fool's joke, right? This can't be real. Who would want to kind of run around with a phone in front of their face? And so Pokemon Go for us was actually quite a help to educate the market. At the time, Amy and I thought, we only have maybe a year before everybody's caught on. Fact is, as you may know, people are still not caught on. We're still at the beginning of augmented reality, which I find quite amazing. Over time, we started to move into educational content within the digital playground. So this is one of our environmental games, because we started to work with the councils on what content do you want to see. And that was when I realized that we had put ourselves into a niche market where we were taking government messages and gamifying them. You tell us what you want the community to do, or to learn, or to understand, we gamify it. And that was what Magical Park all of a sudden had become. It wasn't anymore, how do we get kids off the couch? It was, give us the message you want to educate the community with. We're gamifying it, we're making it fun, we're going to put it out there. And all of a sudden we were talking about recycling, environmental messages, all sorts of stuff. Reading, all sorts of topics. Now the challenge there became that governments don't have a hell of a lot of money, especially when it comes to the educational market. And that was quite another frustrating curve that we had to learn. We had mastered getting any sort of contracts done really quickly, so it didn't take us long to get sign-off from the councils. In fact, I believe that we are the only game vendor for a lot of cities in New Zealand and Australia, and they literally don't have any other game vendors on their books. But part of the idea was, that we take the messages and the problems that they have and gamify. So what you see here is, for instance, our first, I'm going to jump ship now a little bit and talk about something else. So you may have noticed that in the earlier versions the game was moving quite a lot. Now we're going to talk about communities. So communities, one of the councils came to us and said, our community is still on an iPhone 5. Now this is not long ago. And that gives you an idea as to what the other challenges that we have. You have to develop for the community, not for what you like. Not for what is hip and what is tech and what is awesome and exciting. So this was an example that we did using AR Core. As you can see, it's nice and stable. Fact is, most of the community don't have devices to use it. So we had to build a system that now differentiates between can your device use AR Core or AR Kit or not. And if it doesn't, it uses the old version that moves a little bit. And if it can, then it uses AR Core, AR Kit. But what also came with that was for us to understand that every time we're now doing a job with the government, we first sit down and we say, what do you know about your community? What are they using? Are they high income? Are they low income? What's your problem with that? You know, like what's their perception of the market? And that is how we develop the apps that we do for them. So this one here was a prototype that we did actually for China. And what we learned from that was that China, for instance, has got way fewer devices that are AR Core capable than in the West. That for us was a real issue where we decided, right, we need to go back to the drawing board and realize we have to build AR Core into any Android app that we deploy in China. We can't rely on downloading things to firewall, is too much of an issue. Now this was another government app that we did for the National Emergency Services. Now this was another interesting learning curve. This took us 3 years, not because it was complicated, no, because we have so many emergencies in New Zealand. Getting the emergency team to sit down and have meetings with us about the game is almost impossible. We had a meeting and then we had a volcanic eruption. We had a meeting, then we had a storm. We had a meeting, then we had a flood. And so it dragged out and it dragged out and it dragged out. And so the whole project took us 3 years. I couldn't believe it. It was quite frustrating. So that was a learning curve as well. Having said that, when COVID hit and we were going into the first pandemic and we had a little bit of insight into that the lockdown was going to happen a little bit before everybody else, not because we were special, but because we were working with China and we had a little bit of insider information. We realized that we needed to do a COVID level, so we did that too. Now this is a New Zealand Film project, New Zealand Film Commission project where we got funding to do our first AR Core AR Kit project aimed at adults. And so here I'm going to go into like talking a little bit about prototypes and the new business model that came from that. So what happened then was that we realized, okay, so governments don't have a lot of money, they don't have a lot of time, they're all stretched. The best thing that we can do is we need to get them to share. We need to get them to share platforms, assets as much as we can. And this is where I think we got a little bit different. So we would say, for instance, council would come to us and say, this is what we want an environmental app, but we don't have the money. We only have, say, $20,000, but we want the world. And we would say to them, like, well, here's a reality check, you know. You can't have everything, but we're happy to give you most of it if you are willing to share, if you're willing to share with other councils or other cities. Meaning that we own everything that we're building for you. You don't license it, you get to use it for as long as you like, but you have to share it. So the example is this one, Canning. So Canning is an environmental app. They had a pond where the community kept pouring paint in and shopping trolleys and what have you, and the community needed to be educated about water quality. So we did that. But because they didn't have a lot of money, we said, we're going to use all of the assets, the entire platform, everything that we've built for other cities. And you have to be cool with that. And they said, absolutely, we love it. We want to help other cities to grow, to have environmental apps, and to do what we're doing. So by all means, you know, we'll help you. And so that's what started to happen. So then we started to work with the US, and the US loved that concept as well. And we're now, for instance, working on an environmental app in Australia that reuses all the assets that we've built for Canning, reuses the entire platform, and we're just doing what we're calling app recycling. So we're taking the platform that we've built, we're completely recycling it. This is the Canning app that you just saw. It took us 2 days to turn it into a Christmas game. And that is app recycling. And so that is the only way for us to actually stick down to the budget that they sometimes quite often give us. And if they want to have bespoke content or they want to have exclusive content, then they have to pay for it. But what you're just seeing here, that Christmas game, it was a 2-day job, and it was literally taking the Canning app and just recycling it. And so that is pretty much how we work. So we look at the government, we say, what's the message that you want to have? Do we have already something that we can use? Can we recycle it? We let the councils that initially started the project with us know as well that we're taking your prototype and we're going to develop it further. If there's something in it that might work for your project, we'll bring that back to you. You know, and so it becomes a partnership. It becomes a global partnership between different cities that absolutely love sharing assets and love working together.